Well, hello, everyone. My name is Paul Davis, alias Spike. Also on the screen, you see my younger brother, JJ, alias Ike. And this is the first installment of what we hope will be many Spike and Ike Talk Sports.
Yeah.
From time to time, things happen in the world. We talk normally like brothers would about these things.
That's right.
We've often enjoyed the chit chat. And I think, as one of the hosts of this program, my brother JJ Ike has forgotten more sports than most people ever knew. And I always like his perspective. Spike, Ike, we will use the terms interchangeably. Let's jump right into it, Ike. Wow. Bombshell last couple of days prompted this Zoom program. Let's start with Bill Belichick at the professional ranks. I cannot believe that after all he's done for the Patriots, that Bob Kraft still found it appropriate to say, Bill, you're done. Let's hug for the media, but you're out of here. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, we don't know if that's exactly what transpired. We just go from what we read and what we see on the internet. And half the stuff you read on that, we're not really sure. Here's a guy who's given his life to football, his life to the Patriots. 24 seasons, 6 Super Bowl titles. He's 71, early 70s. He just came off a couple of seasons where he was 10 games under 500. You have to say it in the same sentence, the post-Tom Brady era. So he really hasn't been that successful. He's also been the general manager. So a lot of these guys, a lot of this talent that's been bought in has to go through his office. So I can certainly see where the owner, who's been a really great owner, Robert Kraft, he's in his young 80s now. He just said, maybe we need some fresh air. Maybe we need a change. So I can certainly understand it, period.
I got to stop you right there and say, how can you think that the GOAT, the greatest of all time?
Well, wait a minute. You and I have talked about that. I don't necessarily call Bill Belichick the GOAT, just like I don't call Tom Brady the GOAT.
Explain that.
Well, as I talked about earlier, Sid Luckman, Chicago Bears, George Halas in the 1940s, 4 NFL titles. The great Paul Brown, Otto Graham, and the Browns in the 50s, a number of NFL titles. Vince Lombardi, 5 championships, Bart Starr. Terry Bradshaw, among others, 4 NFL titles, Super Bowl, etc. in the 70s. Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, the 80s.
Yeah, but
there's always an attachment between a coach. Now, George Halas, I think he won 6 NFL titles in almost twice as many years as Bill Belichick. He only spent 24. George Halas, innumerably more. So I think that a coach is tied to the quarterback and a quarterback is tied to the coach. So I can say, yeah, he's won 6 numerically Super Bowl titles, more than anybody else, even though George Halas did win 6 National Football League championships. But does that make him the greatest of all time? Well, certainly in the Super Bowl era, just because he has more, just based on that number alone, you got to say, yeah. But I reserve judgment.
What do you say to those who say without the 2 words, Tom Brady, he's not as successful?
I think, well, we're talking about numbers here, right? The numbers bear that out. 10 games under 500. He has struggled. The Patriots have not made the playoffs. So you can make a case. And what about Brady when he goes to Tampa Bay his first year?
He gets it done.
A world championship. So I think it is difficult for me to mention one without the other.
Talk to me, though, about we know that pro football now, a lot of it's marketing. You're marketing to your fans and to the entire nation. I am beside myself in disbelief when I've watched Bill Belichick year after year be a dead wash rag at his post-game press conferences. And I want to remind people that between you and I, we've got almost 50 years of broadcasting experience. We've been in a lot of locker rooms over the years. Would you explain to the audience why, as a young person in the business of television, you can't raise your hand and say, Mr. Belichick, coach, would you stop being an idiot and give us some straight answers today?
Well, I got to be honest with you. Of course, that was my thought years ago, because you and I have been to many a press conference. We've heard many a stupid question, and we've heard many a not really responsive response from head coaches. Then there's Bill Belichick. I don't know the guy. I just know from what I see on TV, etc. He is a nice guy. He is personable, but when it comes to the media, he protects his players. What
But
happens in
JJ,
house stays in house. Now, we've had a number of coaches. I know a number of coaches who have told me stuff, and I walk away thinking, man, I really learned a lot. But they didn't tell me a thing. But they mastered that art. I just don't think in front of the camera, personality is not Bill Belichick's strong suit.
no,
That's one of the reasons he left the Browns. He was terrible with the media.
no, if you're
Bottom line is he won. He won in New England, so you had to put up with it. But I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't think he was a master of the media, and he didn't care.
But if you're an owner right now, we know there's what, 8, 9, 10 NFL teams that are in the market for a new head coach, including some that are in the playoffs right now.
No,
Why
I
would
still
you-
think it's winning. It's winning. Winning trumps everything. I used to say all the time, the media, they laugh, the inside jokes with Belichick because they're at that Monday pressers every week. They laugh, but under their breath, they're probably a little frustrated. But the bottom line, as far as ownership's concerned, Robert Kraft, they've got 6 Super Bowl banners hanging up at Gillette Stadium. They have a number of division titles. They own the last couple of decades. So I don't think it mattered if he was Mr. Personality. Winning trumps everything.
but I still go back to the first question. So Bob Kraft thinks that maybe Belichick has forgotten how to win the formula.
I don't know. I'm not inside his head. I don't know what Robert Kraft thinks. I just think we're seeing perchance also on the collegiate level, a changing of the guard. A changing of the guard. 2 legends. What a week. Think about it. Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest NFL head coach of all time. Nick Saban, arguably, because his 6 national titles, the greatest collegiate football coach of all time. I mean, this is an incredible week. Not to mention schools have 3 days off this week because of snow. When was the last time that happened?
Do you think
this is just a crazy week, and it is a week to remember as far as sports is concerned?
That's kind of why that was the impetus for us to decide to get off our butts and do something on YouTube that maybe we think other people would enjoy. It was this coming together of these 2 major events. We know that Belichick and Saban are good friends. They coached together back in the day. Let's talk about Saban. You think he's done? He's done, isn't he?
I think he's done. I think winning 6 national championships, 17 seasons, I think over 200 wins. He's a legend. His statue's already up. It's been up. Can you imagine walking into that stadium to your office and you already see, and of course, overshadowed no longer by Bear Bryant? Yeah, I think Nick Saban's done. I think what he's done has been an impeccable job. And I think the SEC, I know people get tired of hearing about the SEC, but the passion and the furor down south in the SEC is unlike anything else. Now, you and I have covered a lot of colleges. Nebraska, the passion and the furor, sold out since 1962, the early 60s. It's a different kind of passion. Notre Dame, USC, Florida. It's a different kind of passion. But I do believe down south, coaching in the SEC, it's a little more. It goes deeper than that with people. It goes to people's roots. And I think he's put up with it for 17 years, and I think he's been very, very successful.
Well, I want to throw 2 things at you, Ike, that are in my mind right now. Number one, can you remember when Don Shula's son was the head coach at Alabama?
Who? Or Bill Curry?
Was it David Shula?
Who else? Gene Stallings did win a national championship. It's been a litany of coaches.
Well, and
It
then
is a tough gig.
there's a guy that I worked alongside with at University of New Mexico when I was on Channel 4 in Albuquerque, and that's Dennis Franchione.
Mhm.
Dennis Franchione turned New Mexico Lobos around, and he went to work for Alabama, but he was only there for a cup of coffee, and then he went to Texas A&M. But so I was remembering when Alabama, after Bear Bryant, there was that lull of a number of years where they didn't scare anybody anymore.
Correct. Correct.
Dula came in, he failed.
Correct.
Saban does his what? He does his, what was it, LSU, Miami Dolphins, back to
He went to the NFL, right? And he struggled somewhat in the NFL. Some coaches, as we found, are better suited for college. Some are better suited for the NFL. And some, Jimmy Johnson, can do both.
Well,
But it's difficult.
there's a common theme here, and anybody watching this is going to think, what's Paul or Spike getting at? I had a fella that I met who was a pilot for Delta Airlines. And as fate would have it, he flew the Alabama football team. This may have been 15 years ago when they went to play one of their first SEC title games. So I guess he flew them from Tuscaloosa to Atlanta. And this pilot for Delta, who I will not name, knew that I was a former sportscaster. And he says, I got to tell you, Nick Saban was one of the rudest men I've ever been around. Suffers from short man's disease. And I think about the Saban. I don't know that I would be comfortable going to a Nick Saban press conference either, just like I would not be comfortable being in a Bill Belichick press conference. And I would say to you, yeah, I get it. Win, baby, win. But there are a number of coaches that you can think about in your career, and I can mine, who I loved being around them because they treated me like that I mattered.
Correct. You know? Well, I work at Iowa Western Community College, which is, if not the top 3 or the top premier junior college athletics sports program in the country. In fact, the Reavers, their nickname, just won their 2nd consecutive national championship. They destroyed East Mississippi 61-14, I think the score was. Their head coach, Scott Strohmeyer, now a 3-time national coach of the year. He knows all the coaches because they're all interested in his kids to transfer to a 4-year program. Now, you can meet this guy on the street, you can meet him in a bar, and you wouldn't even know he's a head coach. I've also covered Nebraska football, and I can remember before the interviews with the supposed head coach, we had maybe 10 minutes to shoot B-roll, practice footage. But then it wasn't even an organized practice. It was just guys playing catch. And I used to call it simply the crotch grabbing time that we could get a sliver of video. And I can remember on numerous occasions kneeling down to get certain type of shots and being tapped on the shoulder and saying, it's time, we're done. And then we were lucky to get the head coach who would scramble over for an interview, and we'd all get around him. And sometimes you got the ear hole, as you know, and sometimes you got the front. It's a different beast from the lower levels of college football to the top levels, the top echelon. And especially now with social media, you got to watch what you say or see or what anywhere. I can see where these guys are guarded. And I can also say that, let's be honest, some guys aren't necessarily Lou Holtz blessed with a great personality. They don't truly know how to handle the media. And sometimes we walk away from these pressers going, man, what a, and then other times I walk away thinking, man, that guy's great. But then I look at the video and they really didn't say anything because that's their job.
You mentioned Coach Holtz, and I covered him when he went to University of South Carolina. And my then TV station was based in North Augusta, South Carolina, a 45-minute ride up the highway. And I remember having a number of sit-down interviews with Lou Holtz. He told me about how, as a young man, he sold cemetery plots, a lot of motivational speech material that he shared with me. And I loved being around the guy. And he was a winner, too. How would you like to have covered Spurrier? I miss Spurrier.
Here's the thing. In the early 80s, I did a one-on-one interview with Coach K, Coach Krzyzewski at Duke during his early years. Jay Billis, Johnny Dawkins, Mark Allery, before he was Coach K. They were talking about hanging him in effigy and letting him go. Now, all those years and national championships later, I'm sure he's a little bit more guarded. I'm sure he's a little bit more full of himself. Who wouldn't be? When you're being praised and adored and you're winning all these titles and TV, who wouldn't get a little uppity? But back then, I went in scared to death, a young reporter working from Wilmington, North Carolina, and it was me and Coach K. So I think they evolve, they grow, they learn. And some guys are good at it and some guys aren't.
Well, let's wrap up.
But if you win, that's all that matters.
Belichick, we think, will coach again. He says he wants to coach again. I want to go on record as saying I wouldn't want him in my stable. If he
you're wrong.
He's floundered for 3 years.
No, you're wrong.
He had
he was a great defensive coach with the Giants and Bill Parcells during their Super Bowl years. Every week you hear from all these talking heads, what has Belichick trumped up this game? He is a great defensive-minded head coach who now happens to have 6 Super Bowls on his resume. So I'd like to think that if he wants to coach, he will coach.
Let me ask you this.
And coaches coach. That's what they do. Like race car drivers race. We've covered NASCAR. Drivers drive.
You have a beautiful home behind you as your back. Would you today be able to put this house on the line in a bet? Do you bet that Bill Belichick will win another Super Bowl with your house as collateral?
No. I don't know if he's going to take over a head coaching position. He might just no. Everything's changed, and I don't know if he's going to attach himself to a really good franchise. There are some bad ones out there, and or a good quarterback because they're crapshoots, as everybody knows. So no, I can't. I'm not going to bet my house on him winning another Super Bowl. No way.
Quickly, a couple of off the topics. I'm going to let you go this morning. The transfer portal. Is it going to be the end of college football the way we know?
Well, I think while I can't say for certain, because I'm not privy to the international Rolodex that all the talking heads on TV are privy to, I just can't pick up my phone and call these guys like they can. And suddenly they're knowledgeable. But anyway, I just think that I think there's a number of coaches who just said, forget this, I'm getting out. I can't say for certain. I don't know. I think right now it's the wild, wild west. I think there needs to be some restrictions. I think there needs to be some rules. I just saw where ex-Nebraska quarterback Casey Thompson, I think he's 26 now. He's going to play his 7th season at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I saw that.
He transferred a number of times.
So I don't know. Be a rule against that.
I'm glad, they're getting money and they're blah, 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 but there's something wrong. It's just crazy. Everybody, it's free agency. It's free agency, but now it's college.
This is Paul Davis. I'm here with my brother, JJ Davis. He's in Omaha. I'm in a small town in southern Iowa. His nickname for me is Spike. I often call him Ike.
And let's set the record straight. How many years were you on television?
Well, broadcasting in general, 19, 2 in radio, and the rest in television.
And I spent 78 to 2022, 32, and I'm still in television. So I got over 45 years experience. You and I have worked all around the country, Spike. We've met a lot of the greats, and we haven't met a lot of the greats. So I think we have a lot of good input.
Having said that, what do you think of Barkley? What do you think of Charles Barkley?
He's honest. He's honest. Okay. He's fearless.
But
he's honest. He tells it like it is.
But I watch him on the TNT show with.
But don't you think now he understands? He gets it now. So you don't think he's going to play it up a little bit more? He gets it. He's the show. He gets it. So I think he's honest. He played. He's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. The round mound to rebound, Auburn and all that. So I think he's honest. But I think now he's just joined CBS. He's going to do a show with Gayle King. So he gets it. He's very honest. He's very forward, like with the Aaron Rodgers thing on that ESPN show where he brought up, the bad guy. He
And
said,
where?
I'd punch him right. He said it, but don't bring him up. He said, I'd punch him right in the face. So I like that about Parker. But there are other times that I think he's a little, but he gets it now. He knows he's the show. Just like I think Terry Bradshaw, 4 Super Bowl rings, very knowledgeable. He was in the huddle. He played the game. But I think he gets it now. So he plays it up a little more too.
One of the things I remember about you, growing up with you, we lived in a room that was tiny, my brother JD and you and me. And you were always reading sports books and learning.
That's correct.
I was too busy dating girls.
I'm reading one right now. Great NFL Heroes, 1960.
Pound for pound, emotionally, if you could have lunch with one former NFL player, who would it be?
Jim Thorpe.
Wow.
One of the founding fathers of the National Football League. As you know, he's always been my hero. Canton Bulldogs, 20s. Jim Thorpe, decathlon, pentathlon, 1912 Olympics. I believe his statue's still in the NFL Hall of Fame. I'd want to sit down with Jim Thorpe and ask him how he did it all those years ago without all the modern tools that athletes have today. Jim Thorpe. Or Chuck Bednarik, my favorite NFL player, number 60, Concrete Charlie, Philadelphia Eagles, 60 championship game. Ask him about Frank Gifford. Chuck Bednarik as well.
Let's wrap up this first edition of Spike and Ike Talk Sports with something that will raise the hair on the back of the necks of all of our Baltimore, Maryland-based friends and family. Do you think the Ravens are really for real this year? Everybody seems to have all of a sudden jumped on their bandwagon. And I don't know that they're going to go the distance.
First, again, don't get mad at me. For the record, my team left in 1983, Baltimore Colts.
Yes.
I still live and die with number 19, number 24, the Baltimore Colts. So, and being away from home like you and I have been from Baltimore, I'm not as attached to the Ravens as per se you are. My team left. So I think I can give a more subjective view. Listen, John Harbaugh's won a Super Bowl. The Ravens have won 2.
2 in the history of the franchise.
Right, in the history of their short franchise.
20 years.
So they're good. Are they that good? I love Lamar Jackson. Heisman Trophy winner. He's brought a different Michael Vick-like dimension to the game, not seen before. You know, I do like the guy. But much like Dak Prescott in Dallas, the regular season doesn't matter. I mean, you got to get to the playoffs, you got to win the games, etc. But what matters to me, how did we start this conversation earlier? You got to win. So I'm not convinced Dallas is going to get there. I'm not convinced Lamar Jackson's going to get there. I'm not convinced the boy from Iowa State, Pretty Purdy's going to get there with the 49ers. Let's see. Let's reserve judgment. But yeah, right now they're riding a hog, number 1 seed in the AFC, et cetera, et cetera. But as you know, in playoff football, in playoffs, in sports in general, it all changes.
Spike Ike, I think the Ravens gave up on Joe Flacco too soon.
Well, it's easy to say that now based on what he's done with the Browns.
We're headed for a potential showdown in round 2, right?
Which would be cool, not to mention the 2 teams, the Browns and the Ravens. Art Modell, may he rest in peace, against the team that he took the Browns to Baltimore. So there's a lot of subplots, a lot of storylines in that one. But I want Lamar Jackson to do well. I like him. I think he's a good dude. He represents himself. He doesn't even have an agent. I think he's really good for the game. But again, like Dak Prescott, you got to win, baby. You got to win, baby. Who said that?
All right, brother. Well, I've enjoyed this. This is Spike, and he is Ike. This is going to be called the Spike and Ike Talk Sports broadcast. We'll post it on our newly created YouTube channel. We'd love to have your comments. Do not call JJ. He goes to bed early. His real name is JJ. And like I said, he has forgotten more sports than most.
You know why I like this weather we're having here at Nebraska and Iowa? Because remember when we were sports guys, we always hated the weather guys because they were just playing around on the computer or coming in late and they never did anything. So when we got weather or like election night, I always used to say, this is great because now they get to work, because you and I were always in and out carrying cameras and shooting 8 things a day. And so I love days like this because now they actually have to work.
Well, you know what another memory I have is that I was working at Channel 12 in Augusta when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And the news director called me in and said, we don't know when we're going to return you to a normal sportscaster broad segment. We got about 3.5, 4 minutes.
Well, I remember I was in Roanoke, and the minor league baseball team, the Salem Avalanche, just won the Carolina League the night before. And I shot the game, and I was really excited because I actually followed the ball and the home run. Was really good. The next day, 9/11 happens. We didn't do sports for like 3 days, but I did go up to, because they did play college football that Saturday at Washington and Lee. So I drove up there, shot the game, and obviously did an MOS, POS, people man on the street thing, not only just about the game, but about playing the game after 9/11. So it's funny how it worked. Yeah, but I always remember it. The game that never aired, Salem Avalanche, I never aired it. But obviously it's understandable.
JJ alias Ike has 1,000 stories to tell.
But
I have twice as many to tell.
Because you had a bigger career than I have.
That's not true. We'll get into that later. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this morning. Again, leave your comments, and we'll see you next time, whenever, if ever, that is.